Every election is determined by the people who show up. Larry Sabato.
Someone struggled for your right to vote. Use it. Susan B. Anthony.
Bad officials are elected by good citizens who do not vote. George John Nathan, American drama critic.
Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead.
The future of this republic is in the hands of the American voter. Dwight Eisenhower, former U.S. President.
Real change, enduring change, happens one step at a time. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court.
One of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. Plato.
The worst thing that can happen in a democracy, as well as in an individual's life, is to become cynical about the future and lose hope. That is the end, and we cannot let that happen. Hillary Clinton, former U.S. Secretary of State.
If you don't vote, you lose your right to complain. George Carlin.
Recorded in Round Rock, Texas, in front of a live teleconferenced audience, it's the What's Update with Xander Quation.
Season 2 Election Boogaloo.
Hey! Welcome to the What's Update. I'm Xander Quation. Let's get started. In the mysterious area of Peru known as the Nazca Lines, scientists discovered a 40-yard-long image of a cat carved into the side of a hill. The Nazca Lines are a series of enormous geoglyphs that are best seen from the air and were etched into the soil approximately 2,000 years ago. I can hear the archaeologists now. There wasn't anything there until we started the Zoom call. Then all you could see was the damn cat. The 6.5-foot asteroid will just barely scrape by the Earth on November 2nd, right before Election Day, according to renowned astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. Tyson assured the public that NASA has been monitoring asteroid 2018 BP1 for some time, and it is, quote, not big enough to cause harm. So if the world ends in 2020, it won't be the fault of the universe. The Trump administration and the Mitch McConnell-led Senate make no such guarantees. If the election doesn't go their way, I fully expect their temper tantrums to make the Tunguska event look like an asthmatic blowing on a daisy. Stock up on toilet paper, folks, because this is going to be a real shit show. After a review found that they were being paid less than their male counterparts, Princeton University will pay 106 female professors nearly $1 million in back wages, according to the U.S. Department of Labor. The university denied any wrongdoing, but will pay nearly $1.2 million, including $925,000 in back pay, plus $250,000 in future salary adjustments. When asked what compensation, if any, they'll receive for having to work in New Jersey, the professors were told to forget about it. In our continuing coverage of The Plague That Never Ends, President Trump, after contracting COVID-19 and receiving experimental drug treatments, says he feels like Superman. Really? I think that assessment seems pretty accurate. After all, lately he's been completely unhinged, and it seems like he's really only trying to appeal to the Asian markets. Come on, Superman. You're better than that. Speaking of Asia, Donald Trump's weird, passive-aggressive relationship with China was once again front and center when it was revealed that Trump has a secret Chinese bank account. Trump has also been paying huge amounts of Chinese taxes while paying next to nothing in America. Alright, look, I know it's childish, but I really hope that this whole thing winds up in court just so that I can hear hundreds of reporters referring to Trump v. China. I can hear it now. Trump v. China turned ugly today. Here's the latest to come out of Trump v. China. There have been some startling new discoveries in Trump v. China. Stay tuned. There's more to come in Trump v. China. On On the subject of Asian continental capers, U.S. intelligence agencies warned the White House last year that Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, was the target of an operation by Russian intelligence to feed misinformation to President Trump. Of course, he probably fed it to him by putting it inside some cheese, then the cheese inside of a Big Mac. Who's a good boy in the White House? Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Nobody. That's who. Bad dogs. Bad dogs. Bad. Speaking of unruly pets. Speaking of unruly pets, for the third time in recent months, Trump is using the United States Department of Justice as his own personal attack dogs. On behalf of the President, the Justice Department is suing Stephanie Winston Wolkoff, author of Melania and Me, The Rise and Fall of My Friendship with the First Lady. In the book, Winston Wolkoff says that Mrs. Trump is extremely selfish and image-obsessed. I just don't see it.
Oh!
Yeah, I see it now. Additionally, Attorney General William Barr and the Justice Department are defending Trump in a rape defamation case. According to the Justice Department, the President of the United States should not be held personally liable because he was acting in his official capacity of president at the time he was publicly denying a rape allegation. For real though, if Trump had the slightest capacity to act presidential, maybe he wouldn't have to dodge accusations from at least 25 women over more than 40 years of rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and non-consensual kissing or groping. Consent is key, folks.
Yep.
Speaking of inappropriate sexual behavior, New Yorker staff writer Jeffrey Toobin was recently suspended for tugging his Toobin during a Zoom meeting. Toobin, who is also a legal analyst for CNN, actually whipped out his piece and started giving it a go during a Zoom call, believing that he had stopped video and muted audio. Look. Okay, hold on. Come on here. Look, I am a 19-year-old, healthy, good-looking, wink, man with, well, hands that reach. I'm on Zoom all freaking day. Zoom classes, Zoom interviews, Zoom gaming. My impulse control is just above that of an ADHD toddler. So, you know what, guys? It's a simple rule. Don't whack the weasel while your camera is on. If you wax your willy, keep it privy. If you're shucking the corn, then hide your horn. If you beat your meat, then keep it discreet. That was gonna laugh. While on the subject of unwelcome public dicks, at several recent campaign rallies, Donald Trump has taken to dancing to the song YMCA after he has finished speaking. Here is a visual. Yikes. Who did he learn those moves from? Jeffrey Epstein? Oh, I get it. He's got the moves like Jeffrey. Well, you know, Daria was right. It's a sick-sad world. Speaking of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, that's her on the right, who is being investigated for her role in procuring underage girls for Epstein and his high-paying and high-profile clients to sexually abuse, recently lost a battle to keep a 4-year-old deposition from going public. In the deposition, Maxwell repeatedly dodged questions from investigators and played dumb. For example, when asked about a laundry basket of sex toys, she responded, "I need you to define a sex toy?" Well, I don't know about Maxwell, but I figure it's like the legal definition of pornography. You know a sex toy when you see it.
Oh!
Alright, so 2020 has been an endless cesspool of bad news. So we work hard at least to give you a spoonful of funny to help the horror go down. But some things are just so freaking nerd-tastic that we don't need a joke. Welcome to Nerd Squee! Squee!
Yay, squee!
There comes a time in a young woman's life when she reaches deep down inside her soul and says, "Screw you, basic bitches, I'm becoming an Eagle Scout." On October 2nd, 14-year-old Abigail Winkleman of Austin became part of the inaugural class to become the first female Eagle Scouts, who will be inducted on February 8th, 2021. the 111th anniversary of the Boy Scouts of America. On October 22nd, Beatrix Jackman, a transgender woman, received her Eagle Award. Beatrix is a 19-year-old sophomore at UT, hook 'em, majoring in mathematics. Nerd. Just kidding. Just kidding. Full respect. So, why is this a nerd squee, you ask? Good question. I've personally played D&D with 3 Eagle Scouts at the same table. They were good guys. I don't think they'd mind. I bet you they'd share dice and books with those young ladies if they forgot to bring them. Incidentally, the character I was playing at the time was a human monk named Scott the Pilgrim, who was proficient in bass guitar and on his way to fight in the Battle of the Bands. In other nerd news, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, alongside her fellow representative Ilhan Omar and her 17-year-old daughter, Isra Hirsi, recently did a Twitch stream which gained a lot of attention. AOC played the popular social mystery game Among Us with several other well-known streamers like Jacksepticeye and Pokimane, in order to get the word out for young people to go out there and vote. In her very first round, AOC nervously got the role of imposter and was able to do pretty well before she was caught. Funny. It's usually it's the pervert evangelical Republicans being outed as imposters. As usual, red sus. Furthermore, viewers in the Twitch chat began repeating a common chant of "Orange is sus," referencing the common abbreviation within the game of suspicious or suspect and applying it to Trump as the orange imposter. This time, Trump would actually win the popular vote. Right out the airlock. Stick around, we'll be right back. Woo! Welcome back. Strap in, folks. This is gonna be a long one. So, there's this old joke about a new doctor starting his first day as a resident physician at a mental institution. During the safety lecture, the facility director tells the new guy to keep an eye on the paranoids in case of a structure fire. Why the paranoids? The young doctor asks. Because, the director says, they've already plotted every way out. So here's the thing. Mental illness is, for real, no joke. Unfortunately, much like obesity, it's one of the few human conditions that is still an acceptable target for base humor. That girl cray-cray, you don't have to be nuts to work here, but it helps. Oh no, yeah, oh no. Dave is about to go postal. Popular media is filled with depictions of mental illness that is either played for laughs, i.e. Rebecca Bunch from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, or derision, like the real people on A&E's long-running show Hoarders. The audience is then encouraged to laugh at the crazy person, or to feel some sort of pity out of a sense of superiority to the loony on screen. Mental illness is on the rise. A recent study by the World Health Organization reports that globally, an estimated 264 million people are affected by depression. Bipolar disorder affects about 45 million people worldwide. Schizophrenia affects over 20 million people, and approximately 50 million people have dementia. That's just among the adult population. Depression is one of the leading causes of illness and disability among adolescents ages 10 to 19 years old. And suicide is the third leading cause in 15 to 19-year-olds globally. These statistics cover the normal ebb and flow of the myriad of mental illnesses that are tracked. These numbers don't include the marked increase in reports of depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, or even emerging symptoms that present as PTSD due to the global pandemic. People at risk for mental health conditions are really struggling. From April to September 2020, among people who screened with moderate to severe symptoms of anxiety or depression, 70% reported that one of the top 3 things contributing to their mental health concerns was loneliness or isolation. The global pandemic has contributed to the disruption of work and school routines, normal social activities, and just normal life. It's far too soon to even begin to speculate what the long-term effects of this will be on mental health worldwide. Adolescents are already at high risk for depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation. The added disruption and stress of online learning, no social interactions, and the irrevocable loss of milestone life events like prom and graduation will haunt this generation of young people for years to come. And then there's the upcoming election. According to a Pew Research Center survey of more than 12,000 U.S. adults, about 2/3 of Americans feel worn out by the amount of news there is. It's exhausting. The relentless din of awful is wearing even the strongest people down. And don't get me started on Trump fatigue, which of us hasn't gone to bed stressed to the teeth after the endless stream of ridiculous stunts every hour of every day? You cringe when passing a TV or newspaper, horrified to look. Every social media alert on your phone creates tension and apprehension. What did he do now? What is he going to do next? John Mulaney's analogy about Trump being like a horse in a hospital is far too kind at this point. It's more like watching a cobra slither out of a baby's crib. You know there's no good ending there. The damage has already been done. But Xander, I hear you saying, why can't you just be a man instead of a big crybaby snowflake sissy boy? Why don't you just pull up your big girl panties and cowboy up? Why can't you just... Well, you fill in the blanks, because I know you've been on the receiving end of the same conversation. We all have. And that's the problem. Mental health issues are not just a matter of suck it up or take a lap or walk it off. Depressive disorders, anxiety disorders, bipolar disorders, schizophrenia, autism spectrum disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, social anxiety disorder, substance abuse disorders, eating disorders, mood disorders, personality disorders are all real diseases or conditions. They're all serious health concerns that require professional medical treatment. Mental illnesses are often lifetime conditions. There is no magic pill, no quick fix, no simple remedy. Mental illness is like a forever friend, a difficult and destructive forever friend. Unfortunately, the stigma attached to mental issues makes it difficult for some people to seek help. They're embarrassed and humiliated by a condition that society at large labels as weakness or a moral failing. Even if they can muster the courage to ask for help, access to care is frequently out of reach for most. This problem is made more real for our nation's veterans. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development estimates that on any given night, over 40,000 veterans are homeless. According to a 2016 U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs report, current analysis indicates that an average of 20 veterans die from suicide per day. A 2016 study published in the American Journal of Public Health shows that over 1.1 million Americans who were treated in a VA patient-aligned care team were diagnosed with at least one of 5 mental illnesses: depression, PTSD, substance abuse disorder, anxiety, and schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. The VA has consistently been under threat of massive budget cuts that would further reduce this access to health care for veterans with mental health conditions. Before President Obama's Affordable Care Act passed in 2010, there were more than 48 million uninsured people in the United States. Because of the nature of their conditions, people with mental health illnesses are more likely to have low incomes and to be uninsured. In 1996, some progress was made with pre-ACA with the Mental Health Parity Act, which required all large group employer insurance plans to cover mental health services at the same level as other services, if they offered them. This created parity laws, which means that there cannot be greater cost sharing or other limitations specifically for mental health services. However, those parity laws did not apply to individual and small group plans. Depending on the type of plan, insurers in those two markets could screen patients for mental health history and use that information to deny coverage, exclude and cap mental health services, increase premiums and cost sharing, and restrict access to helpful drugs. The ACA made some strides by pairing coverage expansions with access to mental health care. Efforts to expand coverage, including allowing young people to stay on their parents' plans until age 26 and expanding the Medicaid program, led to a drop in the number of uninsured people to 30.4 million by 2018. Unfortunately, the Republican Congress and the Trump administration has been fighting tooth and nail to repeal the ACA, going as far as the Supreme Court on multiple occasions, with no equitable replacement in sight. Once again, millions requiring care will be booted out of a system that was making small strides in addressing mental health services. However, even with government-run insurance like Medicaid or VA healthcare for our nation's veterans, or affordable private insurance, many vital services are still out of reach for the average person. High copays for psychiatric care or medications for various mental conditions leave most people choosing between food, shelter, or utilities and their anxiety medication or therapy. With rising tensions due to pandemic fatigue, election fatigue, and most of all, Trump fatigue, many people they've opted for a more traditional form of self-medication. Nielsen reports alcohol sales in stores were up 54% in late March, compared to that time last year, while online sales were up nearly 500% in late April. According to a Morning Consult poll of 2,200 U.S. adults conducted in early April, 16% of all adults said they were drinking more during the pandemic, and with higher rates among younger adults. 1 in 4 millennials and nearly 1 in 5 Gen Xers said that they had upped their alcohol intake. Alright, I know that was a lot. Stressful even. Like, I'm stressed, you're stressed, the director is stressed, the head writer is freaking out over there. And even people without diagnosed mental health conditions are struggling. And the situation has become dire for those only barely holding on in the first place. So, where does this leave us? What can we do? I don't feel like there is a simple answer, but the Anxiety and Depression Association of America offers these helpful tips to manage anxiety, stress, and depression. Take a time out, eat well-balanced meals, try to limit alcohol and caffeine intake, get enough sleep, exercise daily to help you feel good and maintain your physical health while improving your mental health. Take deep, calming, cleansing breaths. When stressed, count to 10, slowly, repeat, and count to 20 if necessary. Do your best. Instead of aiming for perfection, which isn't possible, and be proud of however close you can get. Accept that you cannot control everything. Welcome humor. A good laugh goes a long way. Like, there's a reason why they say that laughter is the best medicine. Well, after actual medicine. Do your best to maintain a positive attitude. Make an effort to replace all the negative thoughts with positive ones. Less why and more pie. Learn what triggers your episodes. Is it work, family, school, or something else you can identify? And finally, most important of all, talk to someone. If you don't have someone in your life that you can talk to, there are many fine organizations that you can reach out to for help. Contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is a U.S.-based suicide prevention network of over 160 crisis centers that provides 24/7 service via a toll-free hotline at 1-800-273-8255. It's available to anyone in suicidal crisis or emotional distress. Or are you a veteran in crisis or concerned about one? Connect with the Veterans Crisis Line to reach caring, qualified responders with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Many of them are actually veterans themselves. The Veterans Crisis Line serves all veterans, all service members, National Guard and Reserve members, military family members, and friends. It is confidential and available every day, 24/7. Call 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or text 838-255. The Trevor Project is an American nonprofit organization founded in 1998, focused on suicide prevention efforts among lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning youth. Through a toll-free telephone number, it operates the Trevor Lifeline. It's a confidential service that offers trained counselors 24/7. Call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386 or text START to 678-678. The crisis text line extends to everyone. Their goal is helping people move from a hot moment to a cool moment, guiding you to create a plan to stay safe and healthy. 24/7 help is available. Just text HOME to 741-741 from anywhere in the U.S. anytime. So please, if you need help, ask for it. There's no shame in admitting that you need someone to get you through a tough moment. There are trained, understanding professionals waiting to hear you. Talk to your friends. Talk to your family. No matter how dark the world seems at the moment, and I'll be damned if it's not been clouding up for some time, there is light at the end of the proverbial tunnel. To quote musical genius and venerated 20th century philosopher William Martin Joel, "You may be right, I may be crazy, but it just may be a lunatic you're looking for." Remember kids, you can't spell Xanax without Xan. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Our guest is a special treat for me. We start with our standard questions. Who you, what to do, and why.
So I'm Frank Lesser. I'm a comedy writer and just regular writer as well. I'm on Twitter at Sad Monsters, which was, I did that when I had a humor book that I wrote that was coming out, and I had some friends who were insistent that I join Twitter. So I created that account, and then months later when my book finally came out, I was like, oh, I'll start tweeting. I'll probably get, tens of thousands of followers within, a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two. I think I started doing it about 2 months before the book came out. I think when the book came out, I had maybe like 1,000. It really took a while. So that's one thing. What I do is I tweet, not always successfully. I mean, eventually it got up a little bit more. I'm trying to do different TV show stuff. I had written on the Colbert Report for about 8 years, wrote a bit on Amy Sedaris's show for the first season. I've developed a few other shows when they're in the development process, and worked on a couple bits of punch up for movies, TV things, but I've been trying to do my own thing, and did recently have an idea that I sold somewhere, so I'm in the process of developing that. As soon as this is over, I'm gonna go back and revise the script because the pilot script was way too long. Let's see, that was the who, do, what was the third one? Why? I have no other marketable skills. I think it's the only thing that I really know how to do. In college, and actually in high school and early college, I thought I was going to be a painter. I was going to be an artist. And then I realized, oh, there's no money there. Let me just become a writer. That's the real thing. You don't hear about starving writers because they don't write about it. Nobody's reading their writing if they're sort of writing about it. So that wasn't exactly it. I just have always had ideas, and I think the initial thing was early on, people would tell me, oh, hey, that's funny, that's good. I was writing more, not serious fiction, but like actual short stories, actual prose, and people would read it and go, oh, that's actually pretty funny. So I decided to develop that a little bit. So maybe that's the why, I guess. And I eventually got paid for it. And when you get paid for it enough, you're like, maybe I could keep doing this. I should keep doing this, I guess.
Like add to the list of whys. Like, okay, it's a good thing I like to do, and oh yeah, and now it gets me money. So let's just keep going with that.
Well, it is sort of the unfortunate thing is you either get paid way too much or you get paid nothing. There's very little in between. Like it's hard to be a marginally successful, television writer or writer of any sort. You're either not getting paid enough and you're like an adjunct professor somewhere, or you're getting paid way more than you should be getting paid. And unfortunately, there's also no easy career path to get from wannabe writer, aspiring writer to actual writer.
I'm still very much in the not paid category there. So
yes, yeah.
Hopefully I'm getting out of there at some point. So is there anything you have coming out soon that you want to tell our audience about?
Well, this was a thing that came out almost exactly a year ago that I haven't really been re-promoting it. I should actually check to see if the website has been doing it, but I made a short animated series for IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, called You're Not a Monster. And it's about a therapist whose patients really are the horrifying monsters that they think they are because they really are horrifying monsters. So it's 10 short episodes. They're all about 4 minutes apiece. The human character, the therapist, is voiced by Eric Stonestreet, who was Cam on Modern Family. And he inherited the practice from his great-great-grandfather, who's a vampire, who's voiced by Kelsey Grammer, who of course played Frasier. And there are a bunch of different great cast members. Aparna Nancharla is a hilarious stand-up, and she's a sex demon receptionist. Ellie Kemper is in it as the main character's ex-girlfriend and the reincarnated lost love of Kelsey Grammer's character. Amber Ruffin, who just had a Peacock show come out, voices the Little Mermaid. It was really a great thing. It was a lot of fun to make, but we put it out on IMDb and they really promoted it really well. visitors of imdb.com and didn't really didn't have any ads anywhere else. So at least everybody in the industry sort of eventually saw it. And I'm happy with how it all turned out. And I think that has sort of helped because I've had some other animated pitches. By the way, as I move, this really does make me look like a weird Victorian ghost. It's just something about like the crappy camera on this 6-year-old MacBook and this brownstone in Brooklyn that I'm subletting in at the moment. But that's something that is seasonally appropriate for Halloween, and you can it's on IMDb, but their video player doesn't really allow you to watch the episode sequentially, so you can just go to IMDb's YouTube page to watch that. But having done that and having worked with this really great animation director, Lily Strife, and recording all the actors, it gave me some insight into actually producing animation. So I do have a different project that I don't want to get into too many details because it's all still in the sort of development portion of it, where we went out, we pitched the idea, a place was like, oh, we really like it, we want to make an offer, but then I still have to write several scripts, and then they still have to sort of do everything that they have to do there. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm feeling really good about the script, but it's still one of those, I've made the mistake of you tell people things you're working on, and then in this industry, things fall apart all the time, and then 3 years later, they're like, so whatever happened? Yeah, and you're like, didn't work out.
Yeah, I can understand that. So how did you really get started as a television writer?
So when I was in college, again, early on freshman year, I was still thinking I didn't think I was gonna necessarily be an artist, but was drawing, painting, doing all of those things. Found that I really liked writing short stories, found that people were responding to those short stories. And I ended up writing for the humor magazine in school and ended up becoming an editor. I was in a sketch comedy group that some other kids had started, and then I started another one with it. That fell apart at the end of the first year, at the end of freshman year. And so started another one with some friends from that group, and just really enjoyed doing all of that. I was studying film, essentially, wanted to, be a writer, director, knew that was something that, I'm like, oh, I think I have a talent for coming up with sort of hopefully unique or interesting, crazy stories, and wanted to do something with that and didn't quite know what. Again, unfortunately, it's not like being a lawyer or a doctor where you go to, law school, you go to medical school. The only real comedy school is hopefully getting hired on a TV show where then you're just dumped into it directly. Or actually, it would be moving to New York or LA or Chicago and getting involved in like the comedy scenes there, getting involved in whatever comedy scene is in this, whatever city you're in currently, but then with the idea being to go to one of those three. Probably ultimately it's New York or LA. The people in Chicago sort of cut their teeth there, I think, and then go to New York or LA. I don't even know. My college ex-girlfriend ended up going to grad school in LA and was like, you should come out here. And I was so dumb and naive that I was like, well, but I don't know, what do I do? I want to do comedy, and there's no comedy in Chicago. And then it turns out that's where Second City is, Improv Olympic, all these other big, incredibly established fixtures of the comedy scene. And then when I was working at the Colbert Report, Colbert and about half the writers at the very beginning all came out of Chicago, all came out of Second City. So I was like, oh, that's kind of funny that I'm an idiot. And then was in New York after graduating and was trying to write some humor pieces, trying to, do something, didn't quite know what, never really, didn't want to do stand-up. And my friends in the sketch comedy groups didn't come to New York. And back then, this was like 2002, 2003, UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade, was really just improv. I don't think they were really doing that much sketch there. So I was not really sure what I was doing. I got hired right after college as a PA at TV Land, which is, Nick at Night, TV Land. They show old TV shows and everything. And by the end of it, about 2 or 3 months in, I was writing promos for them, which I didn't realize at the time, but upset all of the other PAs who had been there several years because they were like, who is this jerk? But I'm like, the creative director liked my stuff. Like, he had been an editor of the humor magazine at his school. Of course, his school was Harvard. It was the Harvard Lampoon, and he had been like roommates with Conan O'Brien. So that was at least somewhat helpful. That was where I actually found out from him when I was asking, well, how do you apply to any of these shows? And I found out what a packet was. And so just so you know, just so anybody else watching this knows, all of the late night shows, when you're submitting, it gets difficult because they very rarely will just totally publicize that they're hiring. A lot of times it's a friend of a friend or somebody you'll know, or if you do comedy and somebody saw you perform and really enjoyed it, you might be asked to submit a packet. And then you're writing 5 to 10 pages. It depends on the show. It depends on the specific hiring instance, where they'll want you to write spec material for the show. They're not going to use it if they don't hire you. So there's nothing to really worry about with any of that. And it's just to see if you can, with a quick turnaround, write something that's going to work for the show. And multiple people won't get hired one time, but then you might submit a packet 6 months later or a year later and then get hired. And one of the head writers on the Colbert Report had actually not gotten hired the first time he had submitted. So you just have to know that, don't take it too personally. It doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean you're not funny, and it doesn't even mean that you'll never get hired for that show. But so all I knew, I just heard, okay, that's that sort of thing. And then a different friend of a friend that I met at a party in New York ended up getting hired as the writer's assistant on the Colbert Report. And it's a whole long separate story. I had just gotten, this was in like about 2005. I just gotten mugged and beaten up. And the girl that I was dating at the time moved out to California to work on a pot farm for 2 months. And 3 days after she got out there, was like, hey, I think while I'm out here, we should see other people. So I was at a very, very, very low point in my life. And at the time, I was like, that was the lowest point of my life. There've been slightly lower points after that, but still one of the top low points of my life. And then this other friend of mine just emailed me kind of out of the blue, and she said, hey, I just got hired as a writer's assistant on this new show. Do you know Stephen Colbert? He's one of the Daily Show correspondents. And I was like, yeah, of course. Like, he's the funniest one. Like, I really loved like that era. There were actually a lot of really, really amazing, I mean, they all have gone on to massive stardom, so you don't have to take it from me, but like great correspondents, really funny correspondents, Stephen Colbert, Steve Carell, Ed Helms, Rob Corddry. And I was super excited to watch the show. So I saw the show, and I had actually was home in Ohio. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and had already had a flight home before I got mugged, but then, got mugged and was kind of like, maybe I should stay here and reassess what the hell I'm doing with my life at this point. And that's when my friend, Alex Cooley is her name, emailed me. And so I went, and when I got back to New York, we got drinks, and she invited me to a taping of the show. I think it was the second week of the show. It was Neil deGrasse Tyson's first appearance on the show. And we got drinks afterwards, and I asked, we were sort of chatting about everything. I told her this whole sob story of everything that had happened to me. And I remember it fairly vividly, because then she was like, oh, well, we just got picked up for a full season, and they're looking to hire another writer. And so luckily I knew enough from my previous job, essentially. I knew enough to know that there's such a thing as a packet. So I said, hey, do you think, could I submit a packet? And I didn't realize this, but she was, I think, a little taken aback, because she was like, well, if you got hired, you'd be my boss. That would be a little weird. But then I also found out later, I think she had also submitted a packet, so I feel slightly bad. I've helped out other friends, obviously, since then. But I put a packet together. I thought it was one of the funniest things I'd ever written at that point. Felt really good about it. Didn't hear anything for about 3 weeks. Ran into that friend again, and she was like, oh, I think they brought in another person for the interview. Luckily, it turns out they were hiring 2 people. So about a week later, they called me in, and it was a great, crazy, that was a whole separate experience. We are going in, and I had been told from people who had submitted to the Daily Show and gone in for interviews that, oh, there are several levels, like you meet an associate producer, then you meet a head writer, stuff like that. But this one, I was told like, oh, there are 2 head writers, Allison Silverman and Rich Dom. So there's a a woman and a man. And so I'm like, okay, cool. And their assistant was scheduling it. So I'm like, clearly I'm going to be interviewed by one or the other of them. This is great. And I walk in and I see the guy and I'm like, oh, that must be Rich. And I see the woman and I'm like, oh, that must be Allison. And I see a third guy and he's shaking my hand and it's Stephen Colbert. And he's like, hey, I really loved your packet. And I'm like, I was not expecting you to be here. And then it was not an awkward interview. It only lasted about 20 or 25 minutes. But it was, I think it was probably good that I wasn't expecting to meet Stephen Colbert in that interview, because I might have been more freaked out. But I only thought it was going well at the very end. I remember very vividly again, because this whole thing is still very vivid. It's, you have this vivid moment of, okay, this has worked out. But I thought to myself, oh, this is going well. Well, they seem to have they seem to be into me. If this goes 5 more minutes, I think I'll have the job. And as soon as I had that thought, Colbert said, oh, well, that's great. I think that's all we need to see. I think Alex, she can show you the way out. And I just was like, I don't know, 50-50 whether it went well or not. And then they called me the next day to offer me the job. So that was helpful. That was good. That's when I knew. I was like, okay, I think I can be a writer. Except I didn't actually know. I wasn't starting for another month, and I kept being like, what if I misunderstood what they said? And I actually walked in, and the same person, and told them who I was, but they misunderstood, and they put me. They sent me to this other producer, and she's like, so you're here for the associate, the footage assistant producer job. And I was like, oh my God, did I misunderstand? And I told a bunch of people, but it turns out she had just it was not an intentional prank, but that was a terrifying moment. I don't think I'm doing it justice, but imagine that you think like, I got this great thing, this job that I've been going for. I'm gonna switch this around because the lighting is terrible. That's weird backlighting. Was that bad, or should I have just kept where I was the whole time?
It seems all right.
Okay. But that's sort of the story with that. Yeah, it just was a very good feeling the whole time. Like I still remember how I felt when I got off the phone. And, I've only had a few other points in my life where I'm like, oh, that's great. That was what I wanted to have happen with my career, essentially.
It's good to know that crippling self-doubt issues are a prerequisite for a comedy career.
Absolutely, yes. And second guessing everything, even after they tell you, hey, you're hired, we really like your packet, you still go like, what if I misheard them? And it's not imposter syndrome, because I was cockier then. I was more arrogant. I was like, they better hire me. But I was just like, maybe I misheard what they were saying.
When they said yes, did they mean yes? Or did they mean something else?
Well, they're all into improv, so it could have been yes and. Oh, you've applied. Yes and we're not hiring you. Haha, funny. I don't do improv. That was
you got the job of janitor.
Yeah.
So what's your process for current events joke writing? Do you write solo with a partner or in a group? And was it different now rather than when you're on the Colbert Report?
When you're there, a lot of the stuff early on, you'd write some stuff on your own. But most of the actual 2 or 3 minute long scripts, you'd be writing with a partner. And that was actually effective because some days you're just not feeling funny or you're tired. A lot of humor is sort of an intellectual exercise in any case, even if you're not feeling funny and even if you're not laughing when you're writing it, okay, this is part A, part B, part C. The logical thing is to go to joke D or whatever. There's probably a penis joke. I don't know. Can I curse on this? I had to say D. That wasn't even supposed to be the joke.
I mean, you can curse a little bit. But
I held back at an earlier point. I don't remember what it was, but I was like, that was pretty crazy. I won't curse, but so it's helpful when you have another person there to sort of bounce things off of if you're in a bad mood, something like that. But then since then, I mean, the satire stuff, I was on Colbert for almost 8 years. I did get pretty burnt out of all of the sort of current event type jokes, all of the political stuff. That was still when Obama was president. So I don't know if I don't think anybody was re-energized with the last 4 years or anything, but it was already like, I was exhausted. But then with everything going on now with Trump, like that's all most people can think about. So that's 95% of my Twitter feed. And so there it is, just thinking of, oh, whatever the news story is, whatever the headline is essentially just the setup. And so then you think, well, what's the punchline? What's the funny twist on it? And the problem with Twitter is you've got millions, literally millions of other people doing the same thing. So there's a lot of times, oh, you think of a great joke and then someone's like, oh, this other person tweeted it half an hour. And you're like, yeah, of course, because a million different variations of the joke were going out there. Every once in a while, I think there's something that, not even every once in a while, I do think I often have like, oh, good, a unique twist or a unique joke. Sometimes it's so unique that it doesn't catch on. Sometimes the things that really get big and retweeted a lot are the ones that are, oh, I love that because that's what I thought, sort of thing. That would also happen sometimes on the show or on any show. People are pitching around an idea and you're sitting there and you're like, man, I have this joke, but it's just so obvious, I don't want to pitch it. And then somebody else pitches it and everybody laughs and is like, that's great. And you're like, why didn't I say that? That was
comedy zeitgeist.
Yeah.
All right. So when you were working on the Colbert Report, it's well known that Stephen Colbert, when he was doing the Colbert Report, did the character of Stephen Colbert rather than just doing it or doing his own style. So when you were writing, did you write for the character of Stephen Colbert, or did you just write the jokes and he sort of did them in the character?
No, we definitely kept the character in mind. Like that was, it was like writing for a character on a sitcom or anything. And I mean, even if it wasn't him as that character, and I left before the Late Show started, even though I had some family stuff going on and was a bit burnt out. But even if you were writing for him in that or writing for any late night host, they're all still playing a character. It's just the character is generally closer to who they actually are. And one of the fun things on the Colbert Report was that character becoming a little more like the real Stephen Colbert. Like all of a sudden, okay, the character also really loves Lord of the Rings. He's, and has an encyclopedic, photographic memory for every detail of the Silmarillion to that degree. Or just other little bits. And people, you'd read online where people would like where he'd break a little bit, where he'd start laughing, or you could see bits of the real human showing through. But so, yeah, whenever we were writing jokes, it was always with the idea of, oh, it's this parody of this far-right conservative character. I mean, the other thing is in the last 4 years, I don't even know if you could have still done the show because the parodies of the far-right conservative characters have actually showed up on the far-right conservative media. Like, oh, I don't think anything on Colbert was crazier than anything on OANN or whatever that network is.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. Like, you go back to some of the earlier episodes and then you see things that the character would do and be like, huh, where have I heard that before? Oh yeah, on the news.
Yeah.
Actually doing that. It's surreal.
Well, and I think that was initially at the beginning of 2017 or at the end of 2016 when the election happened. There was sort of a conventional wisdom, like from among non-comedy writers mostly, of like, well, this is going to be great for comedy. But then if you talk to any of the people on any of the late night shows, they're like, no, it's terrible. It's not. It's just not funny. It's partially because it's hard you can't out-funny, you can't make things crazier than what the reality is. There are so many aspects of things that if you were gonna pitch it as a joke, everybody in the room would go, no way would that happen. That's ridiculous. And then on TV, I think like the Veep writers, the Veep writers were saying like they had to like abandon storylines because, then the next craziest thing just happened. Or even where the most recent craziest thing was Trump musing about how when he came out of the hospital, he wanted to kind of act feeble, and then he was gonna tear open his shirt and reveal a Superman t-shirt underneath. No, but the other thing is you have to go like, maybe they're making that up because who knows, you can't believe necessarily anything. I don't want to get too political, but obviously having been a political satirist, I have some political views, but it's just absolutely craziness. And so you couldn't write anything crazier than that. I guess the one thing slightly crazier than this is Idiocracy, which is a great, really, really, really funny movie.
Yeah, I've seen that in like these past 4 years. It like that's been the most surreal. It's like it was supposed to be a warning and a satire, not a blueprint.
Well, it was also supposed to be, this is what the world has devolved into like 400 years from now, not, I don't know, the movie came out 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 15, maybe it was early, was it mid-2000s? When did Idiocracy come? It was definitely early 2000s. I'm curious now.
Early 2000s, I believe.
Yeah, 2006. Okay, yeah. But yeah, it's kind of crazy.
So when you were writing, did you ever find yourself writing a joke that you knew you just can't get put on the air, but you still needed to write it down anyway because it needed to be said?
Yeah, well, because that was the good thing. We had layers of head writers, and then Stephen himself was the head writer. Everything ultimately had to go through him, and he would weigh in on what he thought was funny, what wasn't. He'd replace jokes. So sometimes you'd have a feeling that something was maybe too extreme, and you'd hope that no one else would think that. You'd hope that you'd be able to get it in. And so that was always fun. But a lot of stuff definitely sort of died in the writer's room. Not died, but like you'd pitch something. And the thing is, the stuff that makes like a whole room full of comedy writers laugh hysterically is probably something you can't put on TV, at least on basic cable. Yeah, so that's the thing. You need to have something that most of them laugh at, 70%. But if there was anything that like you got every single jaded comedy writer to just burst out laughing at, you'd be like, that's probably not able to go on TV. That's not entirely true, and I'm exaggerating for comedic effect.
I imagine it's probably usually prefaced with the, now this is probably why I'm going to hell, but
exactly. And so those would always be fun, and those would sometimes be the things that you wish you could sort of do. And again, I think on the Colbert Report, there was a little more flexibility because it was, oh, he's playing a character. The character can kind of say this, but at other points, Stephen would say, I still have to say this. Like, it's still him saying it. It's easy for us to write, but he actually has to go out in front of 1.5 million, 2 million people who watch each night and say this stuff. So it's interesting. I don't know how that's necessarily impacted doing, it's not even the new show anymore, but doing the Late Show.
On a similar topic, did you ever write a joke that you just completely regretted making it to air?
Not any that I can specifically think of, and then I'll be honest, even if I could, I would not mention it because people would tear me apart. But there were definitely running gags and little things that, again, keeping in mind the character was a parody of a, somewhat bigoted, not introspective, not woke character. There were definitely, or conservative, there were definitely jokes that we would not be making today. I think there were definitely jokes that arguably didn't really work out incredibly well at that point. But what people are sensitive about definitely changes over time. And I think that, again, it all came from a place of fun and a place of parody. But that's also the sort of risk of parodying, a sort of bigoted perspective. And that's not what the character generally was. But the problem with parodying that is occasionally the parody blurs and you can't tell, well, what's the reality? Or, oh, hey, it's a funny joke, but it relies on making some offensive reference to a stereotype. Well, is that really a funny joke, or are you just making a reference to an offensive stereotype? And I think people are a bit more cognizant of that nowadays. And I don't think that has affected comedy in any sort of negative way.
Just gotta find that way to get into the joke, the subtle "I'm kidding,"
Mhm.
without having to say "I'm kidding."
Right. Oh, well, that was one of the fun things was every once in a while you'd see things where certain audiences wouldn't really understand that Colbert was satire, that he was not that character. And if you were just, to be fair, if you were just flipping through and maybe had only ever watched 5 minutes, you might not get that necessarily. So I don't think those people were necessarily idiots, but it was always a little shocking that you're like, oh, really? Okay. You thought this guy was real. The other thing was we also went off on like crazy flights of fancy where obviously we're making weird stuff up.
Yeah. So when you were working on a current events based writing staff, what did you do to unwind after having to pay attention to all the awful all day long?
Well, I wrote a book about sad monsters. That was the thing I did in my spare time because I still wanted to write things. I was an idiot. I should have written a pilot script. I should have written a show pitch. I should have written a screenplay. But I was like, no, the money's in publishing collections of short humor. I think I was still just stuck in college where I was like, oh yeah, you write short humor pieces for this, humor magazine that wants to be like the Harvard Lampoon or the National Lampoon, but the National Lampoon doesn't even exist. There's a very minimal audience for this. It's the New Yorker, essentially. McSweeney's internet tendency runs sort of more traditional humor pieces. But otherwise, just thinking of other things, having fun with other stuff. I definitely was not. There were some writers, not that many, who were just news junkies who would just sit and watch the news. And I would occasionally go to different sites to sort of see what the big scandals were, but generally we'd do that in the morning or late at night so we'd have pitches the next morning.
Has that sentiment changed at all in the last 4 years, like especially?
Well, yeah, you also do get sort of trained to always be looking at the news. So yeah, it's unfortunate where but now it's like a train wreck. You can't look away from the news. Like the last week and a half when Trump got coronavirus has just been an insane. Again, you couldn't really write any of that stuff. I believe he still hasn't mentioned his wife, who is supposedly also positive. There's been like no mention of her. They don't talk about Herman Cain, even though he died because he went to a rally 2 months ago. It's absolutely just a bizarre fantasy world that is, again, could be very funny in 20 years looking back on it. Like there was a really good show, amazing impression, Anthony Adaminek, who did The President Show, and that was on Comedy Central. But the issue was, I don't know that anybody back in 2017 wanted to watch that guy like, hey, let's watch a guy do an uncanny impression and make him really funny. But I do think in 10, 20 years, that show will be really funny. But it's also almost indistinguishable. Half the stuff they did in 2017 as a joke by 2020 was something that actually happened. So I know just from following him on Twitter, and he follows me, and we don't know each other. Although Peter Gross, the guy that played Mike Pence, had been a writer on the Colbert Report for several years. And Peter's a really funny performer. He also voiced multiple characters in my You're Not a Monster thing. That title is also clunky. I wish I had picked a different title. So.
I also follow you on Twitter, and so I know that the election is on your mind a lot. So how do you think this whole mess is going to go down? In general?
I don't know. I mean, I thought I had pretty good political instincts until, but in 2016, I was like, well, there's no way he's going to get elected. Like, obviously, people are not going to be fooled by this. But obviously, almost everybody was wrong in 2016. So I don't think, I'm still like, I have some good instincts. I really have no idea. I mean, at this point, I think enough people. Well, the problem was, and I actually had some hope on election night when he gave his, I guess, victory speech, even though everybody was still waiting to see what was going to happen. I think they were maybe delusionally hopeful that more votes would be coming in. But when he gave his victory speech, and I think he did say something to the effect of he'll be the president for all Americans, but then he did absolutely nothing over the next almost 4 years to prove that. He literally doesn't care about anyone who didn't vote for him or who isn't going to vote for him, and has not been the president for all of America, and has barely been the president for even his supporters, because his policies are actually deeply damaging to them on a social, economic, and philosophical and racial level. And just, if there is a heaven on any sort of, if they're keeping tabs on good deeds, what's been going on has not been going up in anybody's favor. So that was all to sort of say I have no clue. I do think as long as there's not too much apathy, I think Biden will win. I think if it's overwhelming enough in enough key swing states, there are not going to be any challenges, and Trump will just slink away in ignominy. But if it's close in any states, Trump is already, the funny thing is he doesn't hide anything he's going to do. He will tell you immediately, I'm planning on cheating the election. We've got lawyers already looking at all of the states. We're going to fight every mail-in ballot. We're going to focus on that because we know that's going to be more Democratic votes. We'll look at that. They're going to challenge signatures on every ballot. They're going to try to keep votes from actually counting. And of course, they'll do it in the districts that they think are going to be more Democratic leaning, more votes for Biden. But if it's overwhelming enough, that's not going to make a difference. And if they lose Florida overwhelmingly, or lose Ohio and Pennsylvania and some of the other, bigger key swing states, or Arizona, that won't really matter. But if there's a re-election, I don't know what's going to happen, because there's been really no real stopping him. Although just imagine how much worse it would be if Democrats didn't take back the House in 2018. There's at least been some stop or some check, but obviously it requires having senators who aren't complicit. So very depressing. This is a good fun conversation. Civil war either way, though, if you want my prediction.
Yeah, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that Texas will flip.
I think and it could. Where are you located in Texas?
I live in Round Rock, but I do most of my business out of Austin.
Okay. I've only ever been to Texas once, and was in Austin. Had a short film playing at the Austin Film Festival back in, I think, 2005. Probably one of the best films I've ever made still. But it was really it was a great city. I enjoyed it. I was only there like 3 days and had no idea. I love that every single person there, though, maybe it was just because it was the festival, but every cab ride I took, every cab driver was like, well, I'm also working on like this indie film. And I was like, that's funny. And one guy even he's dropping me off late at night at my hotel. He's like, can you mind holding on? This is before people had phones that could play videos. He's like, can I show you? And he went to his trunk and he took out like a flip top DVD player and started showing me this like short film he made. And it was terrible. It was hilarious. He's like, yeah, I was kind of like a gangbanger. And it's like footage of him walking down the street looking really tough. And he's like, but then I died. And then it cut to him in like a coffin. And he's like, so what? He's like, I won't show you the whole thing, but what you think? And I just was like searching for something to say. I'm like, how'd you get the coffin? And he's like, oh, a buddy of mine was an undertaker. And I was just like, oh, that's great. And then the security guard of the like Holiday Inn or wherever comes over because he's like, what, can I help you? And I'm like, thank God you saved me. And then he was even weirder than that guy because the guy's like, well, I'm just showing you, he's got a film. And then the security guard's like, I'm trying to write a screenplay. And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding? So, and then luckily his screenplay was about this very rare genetic disorder he had that was like a very odd thing to just tell complete strangers. So then the cab driver, I think, was like weirded out. And I'm like, I got to get out of here. I think that was probably 6 months or 9 months before I got hired on Colbert. So I was, again, at one of the lowest points in my life was probably, well, not then, because I felt pretty good. I had a short film. It was after that. I had a short film at the Austin Film Festival. and then later the lowest point of my life. So still at one of the good peaks was being almost held captive by a cab driver who's trying to show me, a 25-year-old, this short film that he made. So it was a fun town. I enjoyed it. But it is weird to be like that sort of liberal bastion in the rest of the red state. It was similar. I mean, it's any city essentially. So growing up in Columbus, if you go to any of the sort of like more rural exurbs or out of the city 25 minutes, it's farmland. It's the more conservative, but even then, like, it's conservative, but sometimes only 60%. So
you should come back to Texas once the plague business dies down more, because I can tell you the food here is great. And then, also while I have you on the Zoom call, I actually had an idea for a screenplay. It's about this guy.
Well, the other thing is you don't have to be too careful, but you don't want to like just tell anybody. Like, and again, I think they all thought I'm from like New York, or he's hot, but like don't just tell me your ideas. I actually, at the same time, I don't think you should be too worried about that. I don't think I have no idea. I'm sure there are unscrupulous people who will take an idea, but beyond that, like, an idea can spark another idea. So you just want to be a little careful a little bit with that. But at the same time, I'll tell people, here, like, you go in a general meeting, if you have a manager or an agent, they'll set you up on a meeting with a producer, and then you're sort of not supposed to, but you soft pitch them different ideas. Like, I have this idea for, this show. And then, sometimes I'll tell like 5 ideas and maybe they're into one of them, but then I'm always like, are they other ideas are just bouncing around in their head? I don't think they're going to actually do anything, but somebody else could tell them idea and they'll be like, well, what if you did this instead? I don't know. That's me being slightly paranoid. Or not paranoid. The main thing is I'm saying I don't think you should be paranoid. There's some risk in that, but that's the only way you're going to get people to hear your ideas. And it's the same thing when you're writing a packet. You're basically writing material for a show. You're not getting paid unless you get hired. They're never going to intentionally take any of those jokes. But again, just go on Twitter and find a funny joke on a popular thing and type it in, and you'll probably find something else similar-ish. So there is a lot of, we on the show, you'd call it parallel thought, where somebody else had that same thought, because there's only so many ways to crack the comedy code. If there's a punchline is a news event, other people are going to come up with a sort of similar thing, and that's why you have to make sure yours is the most unique or the unexpected one that people are still going to get. You don't want it to be so unique and so sort of niche that nobody has any idea of what it is. Like, sometimes those are fun, but you're like, nobody's going to get this weird old movie reference. Like, I was I'm not going to talk about it. I was about to mention a TV show a late night show that recently made a big reference. And I was like, is that something that a ton of people are that familiar with? But I don't, that's the other thing. I never talk ill of any late night shows in case I ever decide I need to get back into that.
Don't want to be like, hey guys, are you hiring? Yeah, but weren't you the guy that dissed our show like 2 years ago? No, that was
show.
That guy looks a lot like me, so I get that all the time. I think these days a little paranoia is healthy, but also it could be a good excuse to get people to like stop showing you the screenplays. Like, hey, you want to see my screenplay? Hey, don't share it with too many strangers. Keep it to yourself. Seriously, stop.
Yeah. So, well, there actually was a thing with actually, I'm going to skip this topic. I don't want to get too much into the thing that I'm working on until it hopefully is announced.
Don't want to jinx it.
Yeah.
Well, we got time for one last question, and this is one that we're asking all our guests this season. If you had a magic wand or a monkey's paw or a wish spell or something that would allow you to change 2 things about the world, what would you change?
Well, the one would be happening November 3rd. Remember to get out and vote. I'm not sure when this will be airing. I don't know. Is it too easy to? I don't have a funny answer. But just like hunger, poverty. like give people, I wouldn't say like a basic minimum income necessarily. I haven't looked exactly at that issue so much, but I think that is just such a key root of so many other issues, just at that like fundamental level. Or, and it's not even saying like, oh, well, people need to be punished for the choices they make, but what about the kid who's grows up in that, level of poverty? What decisions did they make that result in that? So just if there was a way to give more people an equal chance at the beginning. And then, of course, you're still heartless if you think just because somebody made a bad decision that they should, hey, screw you. Like, what sort of jerk philosophy is that? That's not much better. But then it's especially bad when you're just thinking of like, oh, an innocent kid. So that wasn't particularly funny, but I'll think of a funny way to sort of.
Everybody deserves at least the bare necessities.
Mhm.
But is there anything like selfish you'd want for yourself?
Well, for the show that I'm working on to actually get picked up and to move forward, and I'm again feeling good about it. Absolutely, that thing, I think. Yeah. And my cat's here, and I sometimes wish my cat could grow up into like a giant, like 5 times her size, so I could like hug her. Yeah, like just like really big, except then she's too tiny. She's like a kitten size, even though she's fully grown. So her claws aren't that sharp, but I do worry if she was big, she would like eviscerate me. But sometimes I'm like, oh, you're petting a cat, and you're like, wouldn't it be great if this cat was like the size of the bed? You could like ride her around. But that would be a weird wish, so I don't want to. I'd rather go with there's like an old Steve Martin bit on SNL, but like, oh yeah, I'd rather go with the world hunger, with the helping give everybody an equal footing, and then that one.
You gotta be careful about those like random wishes. Like, I wish my cat was like the size of the couch, and then suddenly Rod Serling shows up and he's about to enter the Twilight Zone.
Well, that's the thing. I like that you reference the monkey's paw, because all of that's especially the one that's the unintended horrific consequence.
Yeah.
Well, I really want my my friend who died in a horrific industrial accident to come back to life. That's the plot of the monkey's.
Yeah, or like I wish that I had like $1,000, and then he dies, and like, oh, well, we've got the life insurance money right here. How much? $1,000.
I think that is the initial part, and then the second wish is to bring the kid back.
And then they're like, oh crap, how's that gonna go?
And then it's like, oh, they hear it. Yeah, it's a really great short story. I love that it's become this sort of like comic shorthand, but I kind of liked it more when it was the more obscure thing. But now it's like, but it's still like a good bit of, I think what really popularized it, and where I first, I think, probably encountered it, was The Simpsons. They had a good Monkey's Paw Halloween episode.
Yeah. Of course, then I think I could really just describe all of Twilight Zone or Black Mirror.
Yeah. I just want to get the cat in the picture.
Aw,
pretty adorable.
We had to kick our cats out.
Yeah, like we have to keep our cats in like a separate room while we're doing the recording, because even if we have the door closed, they'll just go up to the door and be like, "Let me in."
Usually pretty good.
Oh. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap this up. So, Frank Lester, everybody, we'll be right back.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for watching. We'd like to thank our very special guest, Frank Lesser, for providing a unique insight into the comedic writing process, as well as just being a swell dude overall. And going out to all who are undecided in the upcoming election, as at the time of this recording, we're only a week and a smidge out from Election Day. All I can say is, how the hell are you still undecided at this point? Like, this isn't some trivial choice between, should I get my Toyota Camry in burgundy or navy? No. This is a decision between, hey, do you want some nice Neapolitan ice cream, best of all worlds? Or do you want to get stabbed through the eye with red hot rebar? Just how? How can you be undecided? It makes no sense. Anyways, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, it is what it is.
So when you don't vote, what you're really doing is letting someone else take power over your own life. Michelle Obama, former First Lady.
Nobody will ever deprive the American people of the right to vote, except the American people themselves. And the only way they can do this is by not voting. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, former U.S. President.
If American women would increase their voting turnout by 10%, I think we would see an end to all of the budget cuts in programs benefiting women and children. Coretta Scott King.
This right to vote is the basic right without which all others are meaningless. It gives people as individuals, control over their own destinies. Lyndon B. Johnson, former U.S. President.
Here's the problem. While some folks are frustrated and tuned out and staying home on Election Day, trust me, other folks are showing up. Democracy continues with or without you. Michelle Obama, former First Lady.
Don't boo, vote.